Winston Churchill. As a Prime Minister, Winston Churchill led Britain through the Second World War, inspiring people with his speeches and refusing to give up. Winston Spencer Churchill was born in 1874 to a very powerful family. His father was a British lord and a member of a parliament, MP, and his mother was the daughter of a wealthy American businessman. He was born in a grand house called Buckingham Palace that had belonged to his father's family for generations. Despite his family's power and wealth, Winston's childhood wasn't especially happy. He didn't see very much of his parents, although he thought his mother was beautiful and glamorous like the evening star, like most upper-class Victorian boys. Like most upper-class Victorian boys, he was sent away to a boarding school when he was only 7. Here, children were taught Latin and Greek and punished harshly if they didn't do well. Winston did not enjoy learning Latin and did not get very good marks in lessons. When he was older, he took the entrance exam for a very well-known boarding school called Harrow. He only just managed to pass the exam to be allowed to go there, although he liked this school better. He learned to become a brilliant public speaker there. Despite having a stutter and lisps, he looked back on his school days and a sombre grey patch up the chart of my journey. After seeing Winston playing with his huge collection of toy soldiers, his father was determined that he should join the army. It took him 3 tries to get in the Sandhurst, a military academy that trained officers for the British Army. However, he eventually managed it. In 1895, when he had finished his training, he joined the Royal Cavalry. The Royal Cavalry is a group of soldiers who ride on horseback. Winston was known for his courage on the battlefield, and he always wanted to be where the action was. During this time in the army, he served India and Sudan. In 1899, at the start of the Boer War, a conflict between British Empire and 2 independent states in South Africa, he travelled out to the battlefield as a journalist, reporting on the war. Then, like his father, he became an MP, and he was soon well known as a powerful speaker. However, during the First War, he was in charge of disastrous attack on Turkey, which went so badly with so many people dying that he was forced to resign. Winston thought his political career was over, but it wasn't. Speeches that inspired the nation. But 20 years later, just as the Second World War with Germany broke out, Winston became incredibly important to Britain. Before fighting began, he warned the Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain that Adolf Hitler, the leader of the Nazi Party which ruled Germany, was dangerous. After Neville Chamberlain was signed in 1940, shortly after the start of the war, Winston became the Prime Minister. He worked closely with the American and Russian leaders to fight the Nazis. He refused to consider surrendering even when the situation seemed desperate, and he gave speech after speech that inspired united Britain to keep on fighting. During the battle, when German aircraft attacked Britain for months, trying to force Winston and the government to give up, the Royal Air Force fought them back and again. Winston paid tribute to the courage of British pilots. Never in the field of human conflict was so much owned by so many few. The determination shown by Winston and British people paid off. Britain wasn't invaded. In 1945, Germany surrendered and the Second World War was over. Hero of Time. Although Winston wasn't voted out of power at the end of the war, he became Prime Minister again between 1951 and 1955, and he remained very popular. When he died in 1965 at the age of 90, he was given a state funeral, an honour usually only given to members of the royal family. While Winston is generally considered a hero for what he did during the Second World War, he also held some very racist views. He said that African and Indian people were inferior to white people, a belief some people criticised at the time. In 1943, when Britain still controlled India, there was a terrible famine in Bengal region of India and up to 3 million people died. Some historians say Winston didn't do enough to help the people living there and that his decisions actually made things worse. Although he was a remarkable and talented man who led Britain successfully through a time of war, his actions do not mean we cannot recognise his faults and expect better today. What does the Bible say in Ephesians 3, verse 1 and 2? For this cause I, Paul, the prisoner of Jesus Christ, for you Gentiles, which he had promised afore by his prophets in the Holy Scriptures,